All right. So I have a few questions that I like to ask in these sessions each year. It's a little bit easier whenever it's in person, but if you have any guesses to the answers to these, feel free to drop those in the chat as well, and we'll see how close you get. Why do we have to conduct an inventory audit each year? The short of this is that it is state mandated. The state wants to know that we know where the items we have purchased are and that we can account for them each year. How many inventoried assets do we have college-wide? The answer to this one, we have around 18,000 and a little over $60 million worth of assets. So you can see why it would be important that we know where these things are and that we're accountable for them. And what qualifies an item to be inventoried? This one is kind of tricky. Most of the time, it's going to be anything $1,000 or over, but there are exceptions to those rules. And that can be found in the purchasing manual. It's a list. So if you're questioning whether or not something should be added to inventory, you can always refer back to that list. If it's under the $1,000 threshold, it's going to be things like outdoor lawn equipment or cameras and those things, pistols. Those will be inventoried, and that starts at $250. A couple of important dates that you'll need to remember throughout this semester. January 1st, the audit opened. So you are all not in there because this is your first time to attend this session this year, and this session is mandatory to begin scanning. So after the session, Heather will go in and add you, but as of now, you don't have access to scan. But scanning can be done now, and then scanning closes March 13th. This is the Friday before spring break. This is much earlier. This process is taking place much earlier this year. And the idea behind that is that faculty is here. We have the majority of our employees here, whereas we're, right up on the end of the semester when we typically do it. You've got employees that have gone home. You have stuff that's being scanned and people don't know whether or not that it can be if it's being used or it can be gotten rid of. And so the idea behind this is that all hands are on deck. Everybody's looking at these things, and we have an opportunity to clean out our spaces of the things that we're not using, so that the things that are in use can be stored properly. March 23rd, this is after we return from spring break, surplus will open. And then April 24th, surplus will close. This is also earlier. We found in years past, we do the audit, and during that time, everybody is laying hands on every single item that we have, but surplus is not happening until September. And so people are seeing stuff when they're scanning it, but they're not remembering, oh, I had this thing that I wanted to get rid of back in May. It's September. So your September report doesn't have hardly anything on it because nobody's had time or remembers things that they found in a closet that they might want to get rid of. So the idea is that we're doing these things back to back so that we can get these spaces cleaned out. Some information about your user permissions. If you currently have the ability to make transfers in Asset Panda, those abilities will be revoked for the audit process. This is not something that's new. We do this every year. The only thing that you'll be able to do during this process is scan. Once the audit is over, then we'll restore your normal permissions. If you notice after it's over that you are still unable to transfer, just reach out to Heather and she can check and make sure that we didn't overlook you or and just make sure that your access is reinstated for transfers. So if you were in any of the trainings last year, a couple of these slides are going to look familiar. Building and room. This is something, we added this slide to the presentation last year, but building and room has always been something that you're expected to update on every item. Last year, it was empty, so you actually had to fill it in on every item. This year, the stuff that you put in last year is going to be in those spots, but it's very important that you check and make sure that when you scan an item, it is in the correct building and room. If you go in to update a room or a building and you notice that it's not in there, reach out to Heather, and if it's not there, if it is there, she can help you find it. If it's not there, she can get it added for you so that we can ensure that we're properly documenting where everything is located. Person responsible, we've always filled this one out as well. I do think that in years past we've been a little bit more lax about it. Like some items you'll scan, they wouldn't have the person responsible in there. We are trying to get most of our items to have a person responsible listed. For some of this stuff, it's going to be cut and dry. So like my computer that I'm on right now in my office, that's my computer. I'm the only one that uses it, so I would be the person responsible for it. But when you get to general areas that, maybe labs that multiple teachers are utilizing, or common areas like the residence hall, it does get a little bit more tricky, and we'll dive a little bit more into what that looks like in this session. So the technology class was something that we did add last year, and this field only applies to laptops, desktops, and tablets. Technology class sometimes throws people off and they want to code it for anything that is technology, but you're really only required to fill out this field for laptops, desktops, and tablets. So it'll be there for every item, but you're obviously not going to code your desk as an employee issued laptop. So you wouldn't fill anything out for that field. You would leave it blank for those things. We're going to go into, over the next couple of slides, what the employee issued laptop is, what the different options are under the technology class. Most of them are self-explanatory, but this is where the person responsible gets a little tricky, and we can kind of dive into that a little bit more. Like I said, this field was there last year, so a lot of your items, your technology items, are going to already have that information filled in, but you just want to make sure that it's correct, because this was very new last year, and so some of it may be not as accurate. So your first three options are going to be employee issued laptop, employee issued desktop, and employee issued tablet. So this is pretty self-explanatory. If you have, I know a lot of people, especially if you've been here a while, you may have a desktop in your office, but you may have a laptop also that you're taking to meetings. If you're an instructor, you may have a tablet that you're taking to the classroom. But you keep all of those items, you bring all of those items back to your office, and those items stay with you. For those items, you're going to select the appropriate item from the drop down, and then your person responsible would be you, or whoever. If you're scanning for somebody else in their office, if they've got those items, that person is going to be the person responsible. The person responsible, like I said, on things that you have in your office is a little bit easier to determine. Your next three options are student laptop checkout program, laptop carts, and classroom. So for the laptop checkout program, for the most part, and this one does have a few exceptions, but for the most part, this is going to be managed by the LRC. It was brought to our attention in some of the prior sessions that there are programs that they are issuing laptops out to students that they're taking home. You would still do that as a student laptop checkout program, even though, like I said, for the most part, this is going to be managed by the LRC. If you have laptops that are in your classroom that you're giving to students and they are leaving campus with it, you want to select this option. The person responsible for this one, again, most of it is managed by the LRC, so your dean of the LRC is going to be responsible for that. But if it is like I said, for a program, a specific program, and the instructor is passing out these computers to these students, but they're generally returned and kept in that program. The person that's over that program would be the person responsible for that. Laptop carts. So the person responsible is going to be the dean of whatever the area is, or the chair of whatever the area is. Some of this stuff, you may have questions when you go in to code some of this stuff. And if you do, reach out to whoever would be over that area and ask them who should be the person responsible, because there is some wiggle room on the person responsible, but we want to make sure the purpose of that field is not that person, if a laptop, and I know student laptop checkout program, definitely people are concerned about these computers sometimes just walk off, and I'm listed as the person responsible, and I don't want to have to pay for this item. So that's not the idea behind this, is that whoever's responsible is going to have to replace it. We just want that whoever's listed as responsible to be someone that we can reach out to if we are looking for something, and they can say, well, the last time that this item was discussed, this is where it was, and we can go check in that area or check with that person. And that way we can have as few items go missing as possible, and we can do our due diligence to find them if they do go missing before filing police reports. So the idea is not that the person is financially responsible for whatever goes missing. We just want somebody that can give us an idea or point us in a direction if we are to go looking for something. Or if we just need to know if it needs to be replaced, can that person tell us this is no longer being used? Classroom, that's going to be the desktop or laptop that is in the classroom. It stays in the classroom. It's going to be the teacher computer. So if you go into an instructor's classroom and there's a laptop in there it does not leave that desk. That is the laptop that they use in that classroom. It's going to be coded as a classroom computer. The person responsible, again, it's going to be, if there's one person using that classroom, then it's going to be that person will be the person responsible. But if you have multiple teachers that are using that classroom, then you could put the department chair, or you may want to reach out and ask the department chair, okay, so who should we put as the person responsible? Because I do know that there are classrooms that are used by multiple instructors, and there wouldn't be just necessarily one person that you could list. So if you have questions about those and who should be the person responsible, reach out to your dean or whoever's over that department. And then finally, the last two are computer lab and general area. Computer lab, pretty self-explanatory. Those are going to go any of your labs that have multiple computers, where students are going in as a class and maybe working on those, but you'll code those as a computer lab computer. If there is an instructor computer in that classroom, it would be coded as a classroom computer, not as the computer lab computer. Person responsible, again, it's going to operate the same as a classroom. If it's one teacher using that lab, then you can list that person as the person responsible. But if it's multiple, if you know who you need to list, great. If you have questions, reach out to whoever would be over that area. And then general area, I touched on that a little bit. Residence halls are a great example. Here at Harrison Hall, we have a desk in the lobby that has a computer on it. Those type things would be coded as a general area computer. There's multiple people that are using it. And your person responsible, again, you would probably need to ask whoever's over the residence halls or whoever's over that area that this computer is in, and see who the person responsible needs to be for those items. This is a new field. We did not have, we had a version of this last year, and it was basically asking if items needed to be surplused. This is not, that did not get us the information necessarily that we needed, so we changed it up a little bit this year. The question that will be asked, and this will be on every single asset, is this asset needed and still in use? So there will be 4 options that are associated with a label. The labels will look like what you're looking at here, your deans of business, and they were given to your deans of business, so your deans of business have them, or they may have already distributed them to deans of teaching and learning or deans of students. But you can reach out to ask about those. You can start with your dean of business and see what needs to happen with those. But when you scan an asset, every asset will have this question on it. I am currently using my computer in my office. So when I scan my computer in my office, I'm going to mark, yes, this asset is still needed and in use. But I have a laptop that sits in Heather's office that we never use. It just sits in there in a bag and we never use it. So I would scan that item and I would mark no unused desktop, laptop, and tablet for surplus. And I would put a green label on this item. So the idea behind this is that you're going to have stickers on these items. You're going to mark them as something that you're not using. It doesn't matter if it was bought 2 months ago or if it was bought 10 years ago. You're going to color code with these stickers. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're surplusing the item. It means that after the audit, these items are going to be collected by maintenance or whoever is designated on your campus, and they're going to be moved to areas that are specifically set aside for each color label. And then we will determine whether or not these items can be repurposed and used elsewhere, especially on your desktops, laptops, and tablets, because you wouldn't want to get rid of something that you bought last year. That's not typically how we do with those. So if you're not using it, then we'll find someone that needs it and we'll deploy that laptop to them. Your other options are going to be no unused grant funded asset, and that will require a yellow sticker. This does get a little bit tricky because we do know that some desktops, laptops, and tablets would fall under a grant asset. So we did add a column on, or a field on the asset that will be available to you when you scan. You'll be able to see, it'll say, is this item grant funded? And it'll have yes or no. So if I scanned that laptop in Heather's office and it popped up as something that was grant funded, I'm going to put a yellow tag on that, because grant funded is going to trump the green sticker, just because we need to verify that the rules of that grant allow us to get rid of that item if that's the option that we end up going with. Or if we have to keep it for 900 years. If you work in grants, you know there's some stuff that you can never get rid of. So we want to make sure that we're following those rules for those grants. And so if it's the only time that you would have any other color than green on a desktop, laptop, or tablet is if it was a grant funded tablet or whatever, computer. And then finally, your last one is going to be no unused non-technology asset for surplus, and that is going to be a stack of chairs that came out of an old conference room that we just put in a closet when we replaced them and got new chairs, and we just never got rid of them. So we're going to put the pink sticker on it. Scan it. You're going to scan all of these items where they're at, and you're going to fill all of the correct information in on them so that whenever we do get to that point where we're getting these items moved to the correct locations, we will run a report. We'll know what has a green label, what has a yellow label, what has a pink label, where it's located, and where it needs to go. Again, the idea behind this is to get that stuff that you're not using, that's in your way, that's taking up your space, get it and get it out. Again, this process, it does look a little bit different. The deans have kind of decided how they want to manage that on their campus. So if you have any questions about the stickers, reach out to your dean of business. I know for sure that Harrison County is doing it a little bit different than everybody else. So if you work at Harrison County, make sure that you're reaching out to Dr. Rowland and finding out how this process needs to go at that campus. Yes, I see Charlene had asked. This only applies to tagged assets, not chairs that have no asset tag. Everything that we discussed today only applies to tagged assets. So, because we do have a different process for getting rid of those items. So you wouldn't have to put a sticker on, you know, file that you're a file holder that you're wanting to get rid of, because that wouldn't be tagged. That wouldn't be asset tagged. So this is only for things that have been tagged as assets that we have to keep up with in Asset Panda. There will be weekly error reports that will detect missing data. So we did this last year, and a large reason that we did it last year is because we were making everybody fill in every single field on every asset. It was like we were starting from scratch, but we wanted to make sure that the data was correct in Asset Panda. This year, a lot of your stuff that you put in last year will be in there. But again, I want to stress to you that it is very important that you check, because it may have been moved from the room it was in when we scanned last year to another room. So we want to make sure that all that information is correct. Now, for the technology class, you're not going to have that on desks. You're not going to have that on anything that's not computers, laptops, or desktops. Tablets, desktops, or laptops. You're not going to have that field filled in for any of those assets. So that's going to be null, and that's going to be a field that is fine to be empty. But if this report is run and you're missing the person responsible, or you're missing the building or the room, that will pull to this report. It will be sent to the deans, and someone will reach out to you and say, hey, I need you to go scan this again because you had fields missing. There will also be reports that we'll send out that will say, okay, this is how many items that are left in, usually we send it out by campus pretty much, and then they kind of disperse it to whoever it needs to go to. But it'll be a list that says, okay, you started with this amount of items. This is the number of items you have left to scan. Some common problems that we see with scanning is not using the newest version of the app. I don't know 100% what the latest version is, but if you go to your app store on your phone, if you already have Asset Panda on there and you pull that up, it'll tell you whether or not it needs updating. And if you're actually adding it to your phone for the first time, you should have the latest version. It should be downloading the latest version. But if you've had it on there, you know, mine's been on here since last year because I downloaded it last year, and I haven't touched it since. So I would need to make sure that I have the latest version of it. Scanning assets while not in the audit, and I will harp on this one a couple of times within the next few slides, just because I don't want to cause you the pain that comes along with this, because we've had people scan whole departments, 1,000 assets, and they're like, yay, I'm done. I finished it early. I'm good. Can you tell me, or they'll go back in and run their own report, and they'll pull it up and it'll say that nothing's been scanned. When you pull up the Asset Panda app, when you first log in, it's going to have a barcode that you can click on and start scanning on that front screen. So people tend to log in. We're in a hurry. We want to get this done. Nobody wants to do this. So we're rushing through trying to get it done. We click that barcode and we start scanning, and we're not actually in the audit. So you will actually have to click through a drop down and walk through some steps. And if you did not receive, well, what we're going to do at the end of this session, I did send out paperwork, packets of information on the scanning process. If you didn't get it, don't worry. We will send that out after the session is over to everybody that was in here today. But there is a packet of step-by-step screenshot instructions on how to do this. So you'll need to make sure that you click the drop down and select the audit before you click on your barcode and start scanning. Because if you do not, you're going to scan a whole bunch of stuff just to find out that it didn't take. Bad scans and worn tags. Those kind of go hand in hand. If you scan a worn tag, it's going to be a bad scan, and it's going to try to get you to add something to the audit. Also, we've noticed, if your tag's on the bottom of your laptop may have a barcode that came on it. The scanners are very, very sensitive, so it will pick up the barcode that is on your computer. You want to make sure that it is, and it'll try to get you to add that item to the audit. So you want to make sure that you're scanning the actual asset tag. If it tries to get you to add something, we don't want to do that. If you, I have these photos of what I'm talking about. The MGCCC one, that is an example of a worn tag. We've seen them where the tag is basically white and everything's wiped off of it. That's going to try to get you on the scanner screenshot to add the item to the audit. We never want to do that. We want to make sure that we click remove when that happens, and that really kind of throws people off, because then they are kind of under the impression that, oh my gosh, I'm fixing to remove this item from the audit and I don't want to do that. Well, you're not removing the item, you're just removing that bad scan. And then the little black tag that I have on here is just an example of what may be on the back of your device that it actually picks up and tries to scan and get you to add. So you never want to click add item when that pops up. You always want to click remove. Some frequently asked questions that we get: what if I have items on my list to be scanned but no longer have the item? So the most likely thing, what we see the most happen here is I'm getting rid of this laptop from Heather's office, and I know that somebody in HR was looking for a laptop that they could take from campus to campus when they go meet with employees. So I take my laptop down there and I'm like, here, you can have this. And so they start using it. Well, we forgot to go into Asset Panda and actually transfer that item from our office to HR's office. And so it's still going to show that we have possession of it, even though it's being used in HR. So what we would need to do is we would need to call HR. We would need to have them scan it and put all of the correct information in there on it. And then we need to make a note to go back in after the audit is over and we have our permissions restored and transfer that item in Asset Panda to HR. I've scanned all of my items, but it's still showing them as unscanned. Again, this is most likely that you are not in the audit when you start scanning. So you want to make sure that you click that drop down and click FY26 audit before you start scanning anything. And then how do I know which departments to scan? If you're unsure what you're supposed to be scanning, reach out to your dean and they can get you a list of what you should be scanning. Some important things to remember. The audit is live, so you can start scanning it as early as tomorrow. Heather has to get you added, and some of you, if you've not done it before, it may take a little bit longer because there are some steps that we have to go through with IT, but everybody in this session should be able to start scanning as early as tomorrow. So the audit is open and you want to begin scanning as soon as possible. We have until March 13th, but you don't want to wait that long before you start scanning, because at the end, it never fails that there's always items that we can't find, and we want to have time during the audit period to actually go look for those items and to find as many of them as possible. But you're not going to know they're missing if you wait till the week before the audit closes to scan. And you'll be asking for more time because it always happens. So the audit is live as early as tomorrow. Scan, scan, scan. Also, another thing that goes along with that is from this point all the way up until the audit closes in March, we're still buying stuff. We're steady buying things. We're buying things that have to go on inventory. And as they come in, Heather's still tagging those items and sending them out to the campuses. So you want to make sure that you're still checking your list regularly, because if you receive something in your area that needs to be tagged, it's going to have to be scanned before the audit is over. So make sure that you're watching for new things in the audit that might have been purchased. If you're trying, and I kind of touched on this already, if you're trying to update an asset, you're trying to update the building, the room, the person responsible, whatever the case may be, and you cannot find that person responsible, it's not uncommon for people, we got new people since last year. It's not uncommon for you to go in to add them as the person responsible and they not be there. So if you have anything that is not showing in there when you go to put that information on the asset, reach out to Heather, and if it's not there, she can add it for you so that you can select it. And then finally, closing the audit. When you start scanning, at the bottom, every time that you scan something, there is the option to finish audit. And I think what happens in people's heads is, okay, I'm finished with my part of the audit, so it makes sense to click finish audit. Do not click this, because this closes the audit for everybody. It closes the audit for the college. It risks us losing the data that's already in there. Last year, we kind of touched on this and we were like, the audit got closed one time the year before, and we want to make sure we don't do this. And it still happened 3 times this past year. So we want to make sure whatever we do not click finish the audit, because what we don't want to happen is for us to get 90% finished with our scanning and someone click finish audit and then us lose all of that and have to start all over. Finally, missing inventory items. If you think something is missing, if you can't find it and you think you've checked everywhere, check again. I want you to check, and triple check, because it happens every year that we do police reports. We get them in, I report them to the board, and then somebody comes back and is like, oh, we found this item. So we want to make sure that we're checking everywhere, checking unlikely places. I joked with a couple of the campuses, I'm not telling you to check in the bathrooms, but check the bathrooms. If you're looking for your laptop and you can't find it, it seems absurd to check the bathroom, check the bathroom. And a story that I had for this year is the last audit. We were looking for, we had actually had an item that was missing from our area. We searched and searched and searched and couldn't find it. And we were like, okay, well, let's just leave it be for a little while. And then right before the audit closed, we were like, okay, let's try one more time. Let's go look. So Heather and Robbie went down to the conference room. What we were missing was one of those phones that you see on the conference room table. We had scanned everything. They had looked everywhere and we had not found it. So they went back down to the conference room and they decided that they were going to go and double check the conference room one more time before we filed that police report. So they went down there, and I believe that Heather dropped something on the floor, and she bent down to pick it up, and she noticed on the leg of the conference room table, she noticed that it was a solid piece, but it looked like there was a cutout. So they were like, is this a door? And they pushed the button, pushed it in. It didn't have a knob or anything like that. They pushed it in, it popped open, and inside the leg of the conference room table was that phone. Like, who would have even thought to put that there? Who would have thought to check there? So that's why I say, when you think you've looked everywhere, when you think there could not be a more absurd place for the item to be, please check, triple check, quadruple check everywhere that you think that it would be and everywhere you think it wouldn't be, because who knew those tables had compartments on the legs of them? I didn't. So make sure you're checking, because we don't want to file police reports on things that we actually have. If you get to the end and there are still items that you can't find, and it's inevitable, we do have that sometimes. You're going to have to file a police report for that item, and then all of that will need to go to the dean's office on the campus, and all of that will eventually end up here with us, where we will report it to the board. And then this is the last slide I have for today. In some of the previous sessions, the in-person sessions, we were able to do a walkthrough of this, but now that the audit has opened, we are not able to do the hands-on part of this session. But I do want to point out to you that the answer to all of these questions is in the packet that I was discussing that we would send out after the session. There's screen by screen instructions on how to scan items with your phone. There's screen by screen instructions on how to pull a list of your department's items and how to confirm that your items have been scanned. There's instructions on how to, even the first step of it, get logged into the app. And you just want to make sure that you're following those instructions step by step. Read through them and then maybe use them, look through the steps on maybe your first couple of items, and then that'll give you a little bit of a work through before you actually start scanning everything, just to make sure that you get it down pat and you have the correct information when you're working through this process. I think that that's all that I have. We will get those packets emailed out to you, whether you have them or not. We just want to make sure. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to Heather or myself, and we can help you out. Like I said, if you didn't hear this at the beginning of the session, put your name and your M number in the chat, and we'll make sure that you get credit for it. And if you have any questions right now, we're going to hang out on the call and wait and see if we get any questions dropped in the chat, and we'll answer those as we can. If you don't have any questions, if you're good, if you think you're ready, you can go ahead and log out and have a good day.